You've tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, humor-filling, empowering life hacks and motivation for all of the medically adultish people in your life. I'm Dominique Vale, the founder of InvisiYouth Charity and your host, and today is episode 17 and our second season, like I've been telling you. We are so excited to have our guest today. I can say that what I'm very excited about is we're coming back to our friends in the north with our guest today, and she is the creator of the popular YouTube show Stump Kitchen, Alexis Hillyard. As a cook and an advocate in Canada, Alexis was born without her left hand and has been living with limb difference. That's a trait that Alexis has really been massively empowered by and celebrated, and uses what makes her body unique throughout her life and work, promoting body positivity and diversity throughout her social media platforms. I say it all the time because literally Alexis's Instagram, which will tell you where to find her later in the show, is like really kick-ass fun motivation. Physically, her photos are amazing. You need to check those out. With Stump Kitchen, Alexis uses her love of cooking and being in the kitchen. She showcases tutorials on cooking different recipes that are gluten-free, vegan, and vegetarian, and bringing diversity into the cooking community. Outside of the virtual world, Alexis hosts cooking classes as well, that are sometimes vegan cooking classes for kids and adults, ranging in small groups and large groups. So I love cooking classes. That was always it's really fantastic to look and see Alexis's really fun cooking classes. And with her very body positive and adaptive cooking celebration throughout Stump Kitchen, it's poured into pretty much every episode you will find for Alexis. They range from vegan and gluten-free burrito recipes to how you can cut a watermelon, and to her fun series called Stump Chats, where she brings on guests that have all sorts of other limb differences as well. And of course, Alexis has some killer accolades to her name. In 2016, Stump Kitchen won the Best Food Blog in VUE's magazine's Best in Edmonton, and in 2017, Alexis was named the first Canadian ambassador to one of our favorite organizations, Lucky Friend Project, which is a group that is dedicated to celebrating limb difference with awareness, education, and a lot of their projects. So everyone, I want you to welcome Alexis to the show. Hi, Alexis.
Hello. So good to be here.
That was the best introduction ever.
Thank you. I'm so excited. This is awesome.
I'm so excited. For many of you guys who've been following InvisiYouth over the years, Stump Kitchen has been a channel that we have been always retweeting and supporting since Alexis has come onto the YouTube scene. So I'm very excited to have Alexis on the show, and I know we're going to have a good time. We both have very fun, sarcastic senses of humor, so this is going to be a really good episode. I can already feel it. So we're just going to jump right in, and we're going to have all of you guys get to know Alexis a little bit better with our segment called Illest Superlatives.
Illest Superlatives, InvisiYouth. As all of you know, Illest Superlatives is like the high school yearbook, where we get to go not with the typical ones of most likely to succeed, best dressed, class clown. We get to go through the superlatives of life experiences that Alexis has. We're going to go through some of the highlights and best moments in life, whether the most empowering, humorous, or really motivational moments. So, Alexis, my first superlative for you would be most likely to be asked this question by a random person about my limb difference.
Definitely the main one is, what happened to your hand? That's the biggest one. But I'd say like the cutest one I get asked by kids a lot is, how do you brush your teeth? Which I don't really understand, but I think they're just like, I'm just like, well, just like you know. It's really cute.
No, that is actually, it's so, kids in their lack of filter sometimes just brings the best reactions to everything. Yeah. So what would you say after your 3 years with Stump Kitchen, who has been your best guest so far for Stump Kitchen?
That's a tough one because I love absolutely everyone that I've had on this show. But there was one episode I did last Halloween where I got to carve pumpkins with this musical group called Apocalypse Cow, and they sang with me the entire time. So I got like serenaded while we were filming, and it was absolutely incredible because I'm a huge choir nerd. So that was pretty awesome.
And that's just the coolest band name as well.
I know, Apocalypse Cow. Like, what?
Apocalypse Cow and Stump Kitchen. I mean, could we get any better with the two names?
Pretty good.
What would be one of the best reactions you've had from somebody who's watched Stump Kitchen and gotten to chat with you?
So I think that this is a bit more of an emotional one, which I really, really love. But I got a message from somebody who also has a limb difference like me, who's a little bit younger, who was just terrified to go into the kitchen to cook because they had received messages that they couldn't cook or probably weren't really able to. And so they were kind of scared. But because of the show, they were able to like kind of get over those weird assumptions and start cooking and try it out. And they went out of their way to tell me that. And it just made my heart so full. So it was, just things like that are so nice.
I love that. No, that's actually such a sweet story.
Yeah.
What would be you would most likely to use these 3 different hashtags in any of your Stump Kitchen posts?
Well, definitely hashtag Stump Kitchen. I do a lot of like hashtag Stump Life because I'm always capturing, things to do with my limb difference and like how it interacts with my world, and maybe like hashtag congenital amputees rock, something like that.
I love that. That's really cool. What would be most likely to raise awareness in this sort of way?
What do you mean?
Do you like when you're doing sort of activism work, do you like doing it sort of with video work or going and working with a charity more like hands-on? What would be some of like the best way you like to raise awareness?
Hands-on, love it.
I know, right when it came out of my mouth, I was like, oh, Dominic, we just stepped right into that one.
It's all good. Honestly, it's a combination of both. I do love the one-on-one stuff, but the thing that's cool is like when I get to film videos with other people with limb difference, particularly with kids, I feel like I get to do both. So I'm making a video to share with the world and reach a wider audience for folks who might have never considered or thought about limb difference.
Yeah.
But also get to work with those kids one-on-one and get that beautiful like relationship building, and like we get to see ourselves represented in each other. So I'd say like the filming process is like the ultimate because it kind of like covers all of those bases.
Yeah, okay. And what would be sort of the best 3 meals that you love to cook?
Oh my gosh, this changes daily. Like I'm always cooking. And so, but my absolute favorite is vegan chicken and waffles. So you make the chicken with like baked and roasted cauliflower. So good over waffles with some maple syrup. I always love guacamole because it's like one of the first recipes I tried that really got me into the kitchen, like into my body. It uses my stump in all of the ways, and you get so messy, and it's so worth it at the end. And what else? Oh, I've started to make these amazing like vegan eggs that look almost real with like squash and some rice flour and this salt that tastes like eggs called kalinamak.
Cool.
So, but like I said, I make so many food videos and food things. It really changes from day to day.
No, I love this. The chicken and waffles ones sound really cool. Right when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, that sounds really nice.
Yeah, you're like, I'm hungry.
I know, I'm so hungry. I have water. This is sad. I should be eating well. I should be eating while I'm talking to you. I'm just learning this now. That's what I should have been doing. And our last superlative would be, so I'm thinking of this one right now. So what would be sort of your most likely to carry these 3 like kitchen tools with you? If you had to jump into anyone else's kitchen, what would be the 3 things you'd want to have with you?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, I'd say number 1, I have this can opener that is like, it's a brand called Little Beaver, and it's so helpful. Like it's not like the traditional one where you kind of crank. You put it on top and you squeeze it, and it's so much easier for limb difference folks, especially with upper limb difference. Like it's just so nice. So definitely my Little Beaver. Oh, my whisk. You gotta have a good whisk. Like really, really good, just to like keep everything incorporated in beautiful ways. And what else? Honestly, I think my food processor. Like, and you don't need an expensive one. You can get just like a cheap one from a used store. Food processors in vegan cooking are like peanut butter and jam.
Yeah.
So Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. I know my family invested in a NutriBullet, and it changed my life, being able to just push and turn, and it blended.
So true.
Okay, we're going to go into our next segment with Alexis now. Since we have learned some highlight reels for her life, we're going to go into a more empowering section in our segment called Path to Power.
Path to Power. I've got the power.
All right, guys, with Path to Power, this is the time where we discuss different moments and how-to of owning your health and owning disabilities, limb difference. For us, it's a discussion of how we can create power each day in ourselves and empower everyone in different situations in their life. So this is where, guys, we sit back, relax, and get extremely motivated by Alexis. She's going to drop knowledge right now. I'm guaranteeing it. So I know one of the biggest things that people always say to us when they get to watch your videos and watch Stump Kitchen is that they find you so confident and so empowering in how you do your videos and how you interact with other people. So I wanted to know if, like, growing up and building your career, was that something just so very intrinsic, or was some like a confidence that you always got to build as you got older?
So I was really, really lucky to have an extremely supportive family, and with, folks with limb differences and folks with disabilities, that's not always the case, especially with folks that I've known now in my adult life and heard their stories around their communities. Like, a lot of folks got really crappy messages around their limb differences. But for me, my family was so supportive, and they actually, my mom and my sister and I, we would sit down and we would practice at me answering questions about my limb difference. So when I went out into the world, I had sentences and things that I could say. So I was literally like armed and ready to like talk to people about who I am and about my limb difference, combat any bullying or questions. And then from that, I think that kind of confidence helped to exude just like throughout my entire life. And I got to kind of carry it through, being able to be proud of who I was and have the knowledge to talk about it. So I think I was really lucky that way, and it helped to just, carry it out throughout the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I love how you said that was a big sort of with your support network of having them sort of, like you said, sort of give you like an armor of tools to use if people made questions or comments. I think that's really important to have, because it is always very much a family involvement or friend group involvement when you have a chronic illness or disability and you're in sort of a group setting. So that is, like you said, it is helpful to have their interaction of things that they would suggest you say or how you can react to different situations.
Knowledge is power, right? So,
yeah.
It's totally true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think sort of even going off of that too, when you built Stump Kitchen, was that something as very conscious in terms of wanting to raise more awareness and like actively sort of raising awareness, or did it sort of ironically kind of go into that direction of people looking to your channel as a platform of activism?
So when I started Stump Kitchen, it was a happy accident. I began it because I had to start cooking vegan for myself. I chose to go vegan after being vegetarian for most of my life, and I was already gluten-free. And I was also suffering with some pretty intense mental health challenges. I was in a really dark place in my life. But this cooking thing, I was nervous to get into it. But when I did, I found out that, holy cow, like I actually really like cooking. Like I got some simple recipes, started it out, and like started off like really simply for myself, and found that using my stump, which is what I call my arm, using my stump in these cool ways brought me a lot of joy and got me to like return back to this beautiful part of myself that I had kind of forgotten about as an adult. And so I was encouraged to film it by some friends and a partner, and so I did it as a challenge just to see if I could, and I put it out there for fun, really just for myself. And it wasn't until I think about the 4th or 5th episode that I really understood the power of what this could be, because I was starting to get messages from folks, not just from Canada, but from all over the world, just saying like, hey, my kid has the same arm as you, or hey, I have the same arm as you, and like, this is great, and blah, blah, blah. And so it was a beautiful accident that I was able to harness, but it was based on this cool thing that I kind of did for myself in a way. But now I couldn't imagine doing anything different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that it was such a good tool in terms of like strengthening your mental health as well, because there is food therapy, and that is sort of a an avenue and a vessel that a lot of people don't even realize that there's so many. There's a whole spectrum of different activities you can do to like improve your mental wellness and get you into that positive mindset. And cooking really is one of those.
Well, absolutely. And I was really scared to do it at first because there's this assumption that you have to be a professional chef to make food work out, or you have to really understand recipes and stuff. But I was able to find some simple ones, and that really helped. And also, I will say, like, for folks who are struggling with like mental health stuff, this might not work for everyone, but for me, when I got to watch the footage of myself cooking, I got to see myself joyful. And I hadn't experienced that for many, many months at this point. And I was seeing myself, you know, reflected back, having fun. And it almost like helped to like reach down into my soul and pull out my happiness that I hadn't been able to access because my depression had clouded it. So I would encourage folks to film yourself doing something that you love, even if it's like just something simple, like making a morning cup of coffee, whatever makes you happy, and then watching it back. Like, that was such a neat realization for me. So I think Stump Kitchen literally pulled me out of some pretty hard places.
Yeah, and that's such a good piece of advice too, because I even, thinking back on some of the young adults that have come into our charity, they would even say, oh, well, I used to do when they were having some struggles in their health, even in their physical health, and obviously affecting their emotional well-being. They even said, oh, I would just do like Monday dance parties, and I would wake up and I would just put on like loud, happy music and just like get myself dressed and ready, but like focusing on happy and uplifting music. And for them, sort of knowing that was a routine and they were watching themselves in the mirror, like joking around, it was really, and it motivated them of getting ready and going through that week and moving it forward. So I love that advice of having something like cooking and filming yourself doing it to show yourself that joyful side of that you still have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, and kind of even going off of that too, is of another piece of advice when you had mentioned that cooking for some people could feel very intimidating of going into that world of sort of the culinary world of being in the kitchen. What would be sort of your advice of other young people that have a limb difference or they have a disability or a chronic illness and they feel it would affect them negatively in the kitchen, or I'm not able-bodied enough to be in the kitchen?
Definitely. I would say that, first of all, every body and every way of being in the world is valid and beautiful. And also, you get to do things in your own way, and you get to take the time you need to be patient with yourself, and you get to stop whenever you get frustrated. Like, I have been frustrated. I have dropped things. I have burned things. I haven't been able to open cans. I haven't been able to hold pots, you know, in the ways that I've wanted to. Mm-hmm. And I've had to walk away because it's been frustrating. But I'm allowed to feel those things, and I'm allowed to, you know, go slow. I'm allowed to cook one recipe that I love over and over again until I feel good about it. And, you know, I can eat the same thing for over and over again, and that's okay. You don't have to make 1,000 different things. Yeah. You can, you know, really like hone in on what you need. And maybe it's just like working with one ingredient. Like maybe it's exploring squash or like what you can do with a cucumber, like just one thing at a time, and really, like loving your body for what it's able to do at the time. And another thing that really gets me in the moment with cooking, no matter what kind of mood I'm in, is like really smelling my ingredients. So if I'm working with ginger or garlic or fresh vegetables or vegan cheese or whatever, like just smelling those senses, it helps to kind of like relax me and get me in the moment, very present. Because yeah, food is such a cool gift. And I know that we all have different relationships with food. Like either we love it or we hate it, or maybe we experience eating disorders and stuff like that. So wherever you're at in that journey is okay and valid. And, but like being able to kind of drop in and like love your body for how you move through it, I think is like a good first step for enjoying yourself in the kitchen.
And I love that you said like start off with one recipe and moving forward, because that's always a big piece of advice I'll say with any sort of activity, whether that's cooking or trying an adaptive sport or even just being in class and you're trying to regain that independence, is even just taking one recipe or one activity and trying to get yourself comfortable with just one element of that recipe, of how you would slice or dice different things, how you would use different equipment in the kitchen, and sort of take it one step at a time and instead of saying, if I can't do this entire thing from start to finish, then I should just walk away. I can't do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's really important is that we are allowed to ask for help. We're allowed to ask for support. When I cook with the kiddos, when we each are missing a hand, we help each other out. I hold the bottom of the jar and they open the top, or I hold the can while they open it, or all that kind of stuff. And I get help in the kitchen once in a while if I'm cooking with my partner. That's totally okay.
Yeah, no, I love that everything doesn't have to be a solo sport, as I say. Cooking doesn't have to be a solo sport. You can tag team with it and have two
For
people
sure.
in the kitchen.
That's why I work with guests. It's so much fun to have people cook with you.
That was horrible timing for everyone listening of me needing water. I was like, that was great timing while I was trying to swallow. I also wanted to ask for you, because you say a lot of times in your videos, as well as even when you and I have spoken, that you've wanted Stump Kitchen to show the diversity in the kitchen. So why is that for you very important, that's sort of very visibly present of people being in a kitchen and using and being a chef?
Well, I think that the world is getting a bit better at this. However, our social media and television and folks with disabilities are so underrepresented in the media and online. And so to be able to be a part of that important representation for young people and old people, like adults too, need to see themselves.
Yeah.
To be a little part of that is so powerful, because I'm sure that a lot of people watching this have shared this experience to some degree, but whenever I meet someone else with a limb difference, or see someone on the street, or like go to a Lucky Fin event, and everyone, we all share something in common, it is the most beautiful and validating experience. It's so wonderful. And so you can only imagine what, kids using a wheelchair or whatever, like seeing somebody like them in the media, there's a sense of validation, there's representation, there's possibility, there's strength. And so I think, just being able to be a small part of that is so powerful, and I feel very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I love how you even pointed out too that it is that visible representation of yourself that can be empowering to you, but then also, like you've said before, and like I would even imagine, and I even know that cooking it's a necessity. Everyone obviously needs food to survive. So kind of building that independence, where living with an illness or a disability, sometimes you always have to rely on other people in aspects of your life because you physically need it. It's a very empowering thing to find ways in the kitchen that you can sort of take control and take the driver's seat in certain ways of testing how you can use your body in different ways.
Absolutely, for sure. And especially so I use a number of stump techniques, as we'll call them. So I use my stump as a really awesome lemon juicer, or any kind of citrus. I'll just juice like this, and it works so well. Or a spatula, you don't even need to grab a spatula. I just use my stump to scrape out bowls, potato masher. It's a really awesome dough roller. I have one pizza episode, I think, and a couple others where I use my stump to roll out dough. It's incredible. You can save money on kitchen tools. But just like you said, finding things that are unique to you that might be a bit different, but are, useful and make sense for your body, and celebrating that is great.
No, I really like that. And I know you've mentioned it in different points as well, that you do a lot of videos where you have somebody else in the kitchen with you. So I wanted to kind of ask, because a big thing that we'll always get at the charity of people going into different volunteering environments or work environments is that they have to work with people who are also with chronic illness or disability similar to themselves, as well as other people who are healthy and able-bodied. So they always have to try and balance how they might interact with and work with people differently. So would that be an experience that you might have had in the kitchen when you have people who also have limb difference with you cooking versus when you have other people who are able-bodied in that capacity in the kitchen?
Yeah, definitely. And so I also cooked with my friend Wade, who is blind. And so that's been such a neat experience for me to experience cooking in different ways based on my guests. And then for folks who are non-disabled, and have all limbs, I get to learn new skills and tricks from them based on recipes or different things that they like to do, different ingredient combinations, etc. but it's a neat interaction. You know, it's a difference between, you know, me as someone with a limb difference and somebody who has all their limbs. Like, they are kind of learning as we go about different processes, and like you can see little light bulbs go on. And then when I'm working with someone who also has a limb difference, it's a very different interaction. It's similar, but it's different in the sense that like we're figuring stuff out together at the same time, almost in the same way. I don't know how to explain it. I think there's like this beautiful camaraderie and education in both respects, but they do have a bit of a different flavor. But it's hard to kind of pinpoint. But
yeah, I love how you said that there's like a curiosity and on both ends, because you working with someone who also has a limb difference, you're learning from one another, but it's sort of like an unspoken camaraderie, like you had said, because you both know that you are going to be able to use your bodies in similar ways, and then also different tips that you've sort of been able to find. But I love when you mentioned curiosity, because I'll always say, when I've, even with the work that I get to do in different writing capacities, or I'm traveling with the charity, that if I'm usually with a lot of healthy, able-bodied people around me, that I say sometimes in my interaction, and instead of me sort of being a passenger in the car with somebody who also has a chronic illness, where we're both sort of watching the road, but we're both kind of in control. When I'm with other able-bodied people, I usually get to become like the backseat driver, where I have to be proactive and sort of vocalize things, because it's not secondhand knowledge. We're not sort of on the same playing field in different ways, because we have, obviously, my body has to work in different ways. So for them, it's that sort of like backhanded information that I have to be sort of proactive in encouraging them to ask me questions, instead of thinking they might be rude or might misinterpret things that I need, and they stay silent. I always will, and I would imagine you would as well, encourage them to be curious and ask questions.
Absolutely, yes. And that actually, that's a really good analogy, and it makes me think about whenever I'm filming with someone, and if it's someone I haven't met before, but it's a good chemistry, so we're filming together, I always do almost like a safety check-in at the beginning before we start filming, and I say, okay, like I talk about what words are appropriate to use about my arm, what words I like, you know, allow them to ask questions. I give them boundaries, like, yes, you can touch my arm in this situation, because they might not know. So I'm almost like giving them permission to interact, but giving them safe boundaries so they don't cross any lines. Because like for some people, it's not cool if you just walk up and touch their wheelchair or their limb difference arm or their hair or whatever. And so being able to set up those boundaries is so important. And then also when you're working with kids, you know, making sure they know that they can take breaks and they can mess up and all these things. But yeah, and it's also a nice education moment where you can kind of like sneakily teach them acceptable ways to ask questions, you know, because we don't always know.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a good analogy for sure.
Yeah, no, and I like that you said it is, as this is called Path to Power, it is an empowering moment where sort of right out of the gate, you're immediately saying, oh yes, these are sort of parameters of yeses and nos to make them comfortable, but you're laying out that groundwork so you have the control in it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So even going off of that, I know one thing I wanted to chat with you about as well, I mentioned it when I was introducing you, is that anyone who watches your videos knows that you have an amazing sense of humor, and you really bring that into the kitchen and when you're interacting with other people as well. So I wanted to ask, that's a big thing we'll suggest within InvisiYouth, is that using humor and using laughter as sort of a powerful tool for you when you interact with other people. So I wanted to ask, how would you suggest other people sort of combat ignorance with a smile, if you will, of how you can use humor to educate other people and regain the control in situations for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a couple things. I think the first thing to maybe remember is that humor is a wonderful tool, but we don't always have to access it. I think that if we're ever in a situation where we're uncomfortable, or somebody said something that isn't cool, has affected us negatively, we don't actually have to engage. We can walk away. We don't have to, like, if we feel safe to, we can walk away and not have to engage in that, because it's not always our job to make other people feel better and like teach them about our stuff. Like, we're allowed to have a day off, you know, even though that's quite hard, especially for folks with visible disabilities who are out in the world. But also The humor, okay, so the phrase disarming is so funny because, but I've been told numerous times now that humor and my humor, in relation to my stump in the kitchen is very disarming. And so it brings people in a way that kind of like gets rid of any guards that they might have had up, watching somebody with a limb difference.
Yeah.
Helps them get into it in a fun way. And they get to kind of drop some of their assumptions right away. So I find it very inviting when I watch others who have a sense of humor, but who you don't have to try too hard for it. Like, I think it also comes from, living with your disability for so many years. You kind of know yourself, your body.
Yeah.
You know what's going to be funny or what's not, because, I make lots of jokes about dropping things and etc. There's so much. And so just finding those little things that make yourself laugh.
Yeah.
And then sharing that with others. That's really nice. And my friends, I think the friends that are closest to me, they're at the point now where they can make stump jokes and we all laugh.
Yeah.
But if you're a stranger and you make a one-handed joke, I might give you like a raised eyebrow, like, okay, buddy.
That wasn't the right time.
Excuse me, yeah. But once you get to know me, then we can joke about it. But I think it works for me. I don't think humor works for everyone, and it doesn't have to. But and maybe it takes practice. But I don't know. I just think find the things you love about yourself. See if it makes yourself laugh and your loved ones laugh. And if so, then just use it. Why not?
Yeah, and I love that you said that it's sort of using humor as a tool isn't for everyone, but also that you had mentioned it's something that it's the parts of yourself that you love the most. Well, I'll always suggest don't make fun of things that you're uncomfortable or have a confidence issue with about your body, because then you're making yourself the butt of the joke, and that's not what you should do. It's parts that you enjoy about yourself that you should then make jokes about, and if that does affect your illness or disability, then good, that is part of you. But then if it's something you want to hide and you're using it as a joke, we'll always say you're not benefiting anybody by then trying to become the comedian in the room.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a fine dance, but it can be done really well, I think, if and also just like watching more YouTubers and content creators who share that humor is a really fun way in. And I've noticed things about myself through watching other people, and just seeing how they kind of like share fun facts about their disabilities and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll always say my one biggest tip when I always have to interact, because I was injured 10 years ago, so I had 16 years of being healthy and able-bodied before I had my chronic illnesses. So for me, I was always very sarcastic, but then once I got diagnosed and had my injury and my subsequent health problems, people would want to always ask questions all the time, but sometimes not the best questions. Like you say, even people who knew me for a while, they would ask the very ignorant questions or assumption questions, trying to be funny, but also because they didn't know what to do. And I always say the best thing I always did was sort of turn the question back on them and how it sounds a little ridiculous.
Sure.
So I always joke that I had a friend that knew me for a long time. I wasn't able to walk when I had nerve damage in my leg, and so I would have to leave class early. Because I had to hobble around in the hallway, and I didn't need to do that with 900 kids walking in the same hallway with me. So I would always leave early, and they would joke and say, "Oh, well, why are you just like going to drag your peg leg around?" And I kind of looked, and I was like, "Do you drag your leg around as well?" And they went, "Oh, no, I don't. I walk normally." I'm like, "Oh, I walk normally too. It just has a little limp to it."
Yeah.
So it's always, like you said, it's important to feel confident in the way, if you like to use humor, and being able to kind of test yourself out as well, sort of test your comedic skills if you would like to use that as a way to talk to other people.
Yeah, and that's great that you were able to kind of turn it around for folks to notice, like, "Ooh, that was not a cool thing to do." That's really lovely.
Absolutely. I'll always say, does that sound like a proper question? If I asked you that, and they're like, "Oh no, it wouldn't. I wouldn't want to answer it." And I'm like, "Then why would I want to answer it?" Before we go into our intermission segment, I wanted to take a time to thank all of you guys for listening and watching our podcast. We always have been able to hear so much fun feedback. And like many of you know, this is one of our virtual programs for InvisiYouth charity. So we would love to have your continued support. Like I say, always subscribe to our YouTube channel or make sure you subscribe to any of our audio podcast channels as well. I always will say now, moving forward, if you get to obviously leave a fun comment, 5 stars on our iTunes page in our channel there, we would love to be able to give you guys shout outs on our social media and on the show. And we'll be adding a link below to be able to donate to InvisiYouth charity, because like we say, we love to provide our virtual programming and our meetups and hangouts as a free programming and free events for all of you. So any donations always mean so much to us. Like I say, it's sort of giving up a coffee one day in each a month, and you can donate and pay it forward to a charity. So we would love and appreciate all of the support you can give. But now sort of going off of that, I wanted to go back to Alexis and being able to, as I say, take a back seat, like I mentioned, in our own show where I can have Alexis tell me a story in our intermission called So That One Time.
So that one time.
I'm so excited for you to tell me a story, Alexis. You have no idea. I mentioned that to my board yesterday. I said, I'm really excited about this.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is one that really sticks out in my mind. I was about 10 years old, and my parents planned a birthday party for me at Chuck E. Cheese. Do you know Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my childhood.
Yeah, exactly. So like the playroom, the pizza, the ball pit, and I was playing in the ball pit, and it was really fun. And at that time, so I've had a lot of like different prosthetic limbs in my life. I don't use one currently. I use one like to play violin occasionally, but I don't have an everyday use limb, but I used to when I was younger. And at this time I had a pretty heavy myoelectric arm that could like move, and it was battery operated.
Oh, cool.
It was fun. I called it Lefty. Good time. And I was playing, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm hot, I'm sweaty, like blah blah blah. So I called my mom, and I whipped off my arm and I passed it to my mom through the mesh in the ball pit. And she was just like, okay, yeah, thanks, blah blah blah. She takes his arm out, she puts it in her purse, and in her purse it's facing hand way up, so it's like this arm out of her purse.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
I didn't notice this, but Mom and Dad tell me after the fact that all the parents around were just like looking at her horrified. Like the little girl just takes off her arm and like passes it through the mesh. So that was funny. But then a little bit later, Mom notices, oh, where's the battery? And so I guess the battery had fallen out and it was in the bottom of the ball pit. So my mom and dad were just like, oh my gosh. So Dad had to like crawl into this gross, sweaty, germy kid's ball pit, and he was in there like combing through these balls forever to find this battery, because like they were so expensive back then. So all I remember was just like my grumpy dad like rolling around in this kid's ball pit, and he eventually found it, thank goodness, and all was well, and I had the best birthday ever. So.
Oh, I love that. I can imagine a father just sitting there going, I'm going to have to go in, aren't I? I'm going to have to go in for this, aren't I?
Yeah, it's so true. I don't even want to know how many, like, old Band-Aids and stuff you came across in the bottom of that ball pit.
Oh, my God. Just the health sanitary factor in that is just, like, fire alarms in my head for that one.
Absolutely. So that's my story.
I love that. And I just love, even like you had mentioned, you were a younger kid, and just sort of as yourself and your family sort of having that mutual confidence to be, oh, I shouldn't be having my prosthetic on, and just sort of taking it off and passing it over is just having that confidence as a kid going, hey, Mom, can you like, I was going to say give me a hand, and that's not right. So can you take this? Can you take a hand? That would be great. No, I loved that. Oh my God, that's amazing. So we're going to instead switching off, like I had mentioned. Obviously, going into a ball pit probably would be something that your dad would definitely swipe left and say hell no to doing again. So we're going to go into our next segment called Life Tinder Challenge.
Life Tinder Challenge. Swipe right.
So guys, with Life Tinder Challenge, it is sort of our lifestyle version of the dating app for Tinder. We are going to go through some different aspects that we see as sort of different lifestyle aspects of living with a chronic illness or disability that a lot of you tend to face. And Alexis and I are going to go through whether we would swipe heck yes or no way to some of these different trends coming around lately. So, Alexis, the first one I want to ask is, how do you feel about people giving the response, "I'm sorry," when they find out you have an illness or a disability?
It makes me want to throw up. But wait, you have to teach me. Okay, for Tinder, because I don't have it, does swipe left mean good or swipe right mean good?
I think swipe right is good and swipe left is bad, because I think I was like left is no, so I'm going to say no. We'll say no. We're going to swipe that. We're going to have graphics popping up too with this, so you'll be able to see. You guys have to also make sure you check out the YouTube show so you can see Alexis and her reaction to no. We're not going to say "I'm sorry" to people any longer.
Yeah, totally. Because it's like, no, it's just not okay. It's like saying someone that you just meet, like, "Oh, I'm sorry that you are the way you are." Like, "Oh, I'm sorry you have brown hair." Like, "Oh, I'm sorry you're wearing jeans today." I mean, I know it's not that simple, but it also, yeah, I really hate
it. Is sort of that simple too, I always say. It is that simple.
Like, I'm good. Like, you have nothing to feel sorry for. You know, it's all good. I think people are just like, "What would I do? I don't know." So.
Oh, anyway. that I will always say, definitely we will swiping left to absolutely not with "I'm sorry." It is the two words I say that are sort of my least favorite in that sort of my 10 years with a chronic illness, is people apologizing for my day-to-day existence. I'm good so far, guys. So
absolutely.
So since you are in the cooking community, how do you feel about sort of like the Insta foodie trends or like diet ads of products on Instagram that we see?
Well, I mean, I want to swipe left to any kind of diet culture stuff, because I think that you should put whatever into your body that feels good into your body, you know, like, because everyone's relationship with food is different, and diets they're just a tool for selling stuff, quite honest. But in terms of like food on Instagram, I'm going to swipe right for that. I love looking at food pictures. I love it so much.
It's cathartic. It's calming.
Nice. And I put some of my food pictures up, and I like the fact that they're not perfect. But I also really like watching like rainbow smoothies being made. Oh, it's so nice.
Watching those smoothie bowls be made where they layer stuff on top and you can eat. Oh my God. But then I feel so bad when I'm home and I can't make it look like that. I'm like, oh, but my line of chia seeds is not the same as the photo.
That's true. But you have to remember how many hours went into that photo, and that's not how long you're going to take to eat your own breakfast. So
it would take me, I would be able to take 2 hours making it, and it would take me 30 minutes to actually eat it. So yeah. I love that. What about sort of, as we'll say, these sort of like hashtag real talk or full disclosures of health or disability situations that we'll see on Instagram?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I think I'm kind of mixed feelings about it. Like, I don't know if you can swipe in the middle.
We'll do. We'll swipe up.
Yeah, because I think it really, really depends on the individual and the post and what the context is. I do really appreciate and value people who are able to go deep and be authentic about who they are and really engage with their followers in a way that is empowering and truthful. Like, you know, when I'm once in a while, I'll do posts around mental health and like videos around that. And only when I'm feeling like I'm able to be fully authentic. And people really respond to that. I think that people are really savvy consumers of social media, and they can tell when something is authentic versus when something is forced.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I have to say about that. Like, I really value storytelling and, you know, understanding where people are coming from, because it helps make us feel more human.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think?
I was going to say, actually, you hit something like a nail right on the head with it when you said that when you make posts talking about sort of mental wellness or going into that emotional well-being side, you feel a sense of that you're comfortable with the post and you feel confident in being authentic with it. And I think that's sort of where for me and with InvisiYouth, what we'll say is that if you feel comfortable and confident expressing your emotions or expressing that real talk on your health struggles or disability, and you feel comfortable and empowered by doing it, that's really great. But if you're doing it and you don't feel comfortable or you're uneasy, but you feel that you should not always show the perfection, but you show imperfection, I say feel confidence when you're posting anything on social media, because it will stay there forever. You delete it, but the internet always knows, as we'll say. I liked how you said that too. You feel it's very authentic to you and you're confident in the posts that you put up.
Yeah. And people, when they are authentic and when they are bearing your soul to a sense, like people who are watching that and consuming that media, they can feel that, and it can really, you never know who it's going to affect and who it's going to support and who you're going to connect with because of it. So, yeah.
What about pre-packaged meals? We see things like HelloFresh and Blue Apron sort of on social media and in commercials. But what about as being someone within the cooking community? How do you feel about those sort of like pre-packaged send in a box meals?
It's particularly like there's ones that you can get where they put all the ingredients in and then you have recipes that you can make with them as well. And then maybe there's ones that have the meals already made. I'm not actually really sure. There's such a variety. I think the more, like, I'm going to swipe right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because more options that people have to access food, the better. Because not all the ways that we can access food are accessible to everyone. But for some people, ordering groceries online and having them delivered, great. You know, especially if they can afford the extra $3 to have that delivery charge. Yeah. Maybe there's mobility issues. They can't get to the store. And so having more options for that, I think, is really, really great, especially when it's high quality, good stuff. But of course, on the flip side, you know, all these things are around kind of making money. So you never really know the quality. So you kind of have to do your research, I would say. But yeah, the more options for getting food into your body the ways that you want, the better.
Yeah, and I think the one thing you touched upon it as well is the accessibility, that even some of the sort of pre-packaged ingredient selected products, we'll always hear from some of our young people say, well, I have mobility issues with my hands, or my dexterity is bad, so I can't actually open the different bags that they're in without somebody with me. So we'll always say that, sort of like you said, do your research, and I am sure there are Instagrammers or YouTubers opening the boxes and actually cutting open, and you can see how it is for them to be able to use that as well. But doing your research is, I think, that is very key to anybody.
Actually, that's so true, and it makes me think about when I'm out grocery shopping, I actually tend to buy things based on like what I want and what I need, what I like. But if I have a choice of a new product and one bag or jar seems easier to open than the other, I'm going to take the easier opening one, because like I do not have the patience to struggle with like those weird no. So definitely that, I think, is always in the back of my mind when I'm purchasing things or thinking about new kitchen tools or new ingredients or new products. How accessible is it going to be for my body? So
and that is so true, because even as many people know, I have nerve damage in my left hand, so sometimes I can't open things or grip things with the left. So if I can see two types of lids and I'm looking, that one probably will make sense better when I have my hand is locked and I can't move it. So that is, you do subconsciously start picking things that are physically accessible to you without even realizing it.
Absolutely.
What about sort of as being a person that is in the YouTube community and very popular within the social media community as well, what about sort of the clapback culture that we'll say, sort of commenting to people's, as well, in a polite way, saying ignorant comments they might write or leave for you?
Oh, like if I've had ignorant comments and like what?
Yeah, are we fond of clapping, as well as my volunteers have told me, clapping back to trolls, or no?
Oh, that's such a tough one.
Right? That's what
I'm going to swipe in the middle as well, and left and right, because, again, it really depends. But I would say for me as a creator, personally, I'm probably going to say swipe left, because I don't get very many, thank goodness. Yeah. But the ones that I do, if and when I ever responded, it took so much more energy on my part than it did for them. And I honestly, it would cause me stress, and I just like, oh. So if and when I get anything now, I just delete or ignore, and it's so much better for my mental health and anxiety to just like, well, let it go. But again, that's not everyone's strategy, and for the folks that have the energy and the time and the willingness to clap back, that's great if that strengthens you and it feels okay. But I don't always want to put that time in.
Yeah.
So I don't.
And I like how you said that too. If you're very snappy in terms of comebacks and sort of responding to the ignorant statement, and that's sort of a quick tool you can use, that's very empowering. But like I said, it would take me twice as long to think of an appropriate clap back to somebody, of wanting to educate them in a slightly sarcastic manner. But it would take me twice as long than just deleting the comment as a whole.
Absolutely, yeah. And you deserve to spend your energy on other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know, I'd be trying to figure out if it was sarcastic enough, and then there would just be a whole line of mental... What about, this is something we hear about all the time, we've had so many volunteers mentioning it as like a blogging topic, using the other people using the term disability in a description of you or the work that you do.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a multi-layered one. It's such a multi-layered one. I think there's a couple things. Number one, disability is not a 4-letter word, and there are people out there that think it is and don't want it to be associated with their loved ones or whatever, and they'll use different words like differently abled or, other kind of like workarounds. And I get that that's where people are, but disability itself is not a bad word, and it's like such a important social and political word.
Yeah,
I think for our world, for people to identify as, and also to talk about how they and their body interact with our greater world, which is not built for folks with disabilities, for disabled folks most of the time, and so it is really important. I think when people are given the option to claim words for themselves in their own time, that is ultimately what you want. So especially for, say you and I meet for the first time, and maybe you say, oh, you have a little arm, cool. That maybe wouldn't be cool because that's not the word I use, but you would say like, hey, what words do you use to describe your arm? Can I use those words too? And I'd be like, yeah, I call it my stump. That's great. Similarly with, I think, terms like disability, even though technically I have a disability. This is considered a disability by the government, and there's like all those types of things. That's one part of it. That's great. But then the socio interactions that come with it, I think, letting people have their own relationship to the word is really important. And it's just also so much more complex than that.
Yes, I know. Oh my God, I know. Awesome. Now, going off of that, when we were talking about tools of defense, I'm going to go into our last segment with Alexis called What's in Your Toolkit?
What's in your toolkit? What's in your toolkit?
What's in your toolkit section is where I like to say take out your pen and paper, take out your voice recording app on your phone, and make sure you jot down these tips and tricks and tools that Alexis would suggest to all of you, whether they are in the kitchen tools and tips or lifestyle tips and tricks. So the first thing, obviously, I have to ask, since you like cooking, we mentioned this in the beginning of the show, but what are some of your favorite adapting cooking tools that you have in your own kitchen that you like?
Awesome, yeah. So I'll say a couple of things that make cooking more enjoyable and more stress-free for myself, which is also a way to kind of adapt it, make it more accessible for me. Definitely cook with a garbage bowl, meaning you have a bowl by your station that you can put your garbage in as you are cooking, so you're not constantly cooking in a mess and you don't have to go to the garbage can. And if you don't have one of those garbage cans that you can lift up with your foot or whatever, you have to figure out how to open it with all this crap with one hand, and you're like, I don't know. So it just keeps it clean and nice. The other thing, like, these are all going to sound very, like, simple and kind of basic, but it's the simple and basic things that make the most difference. It
really is.
It is. And so the next thing is reading a recipe entirely all the way through before you start. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten through and just been like, oh crap, I don't have peanut butter.
Yep.
Or like, I didn't know this had to sit overnight or whatever. So reading it all the way through and sitting with it and then getting out all of your ingredients. Really, really nice. And then for me, I love cooking in clothes that I don't mind getting dirty because of the way that I hold things against my body and move in the kitchen. There's a lot of, well, not a lot. There's spilling.
Like it's a war zone in here when I cook.
I mean, not always, but definitely more, especially when you're, like if you're holding something, I hold a lot of things against my body, and so I get stains up on my clothing. So I do wear aprons, but making sure that I'm wearing clothes that I don't mind getting dirty helps me be a lot more free in the kitchen. And then tools themselves, I don't really have a lot of adaptive tools, but it's just the way that I use tools and that are a bit different. And those are all things that people can see on the episodes.
Yeah, I like when you had mentioned too, sort of the way that you said having a garbage bowl. I learned that from Rachel Ray when I was very young watching the Food Network. I was like, oh, this is it's a very fun way. But I was totally, I'm laughing because I'm brain fogging on my response to you while you were speaking, the second thing that you had mentioned, and reading a recipe. I just cleared my brain. There we go. As we all know, I have neuro damage, brain fogging. I was like, I don't know where I was going with this. We're back. I remember. I love it you said that because that is sort of the one tip that people tend to forget, because especially in sort of, I like to do baking, and you'll all of a sudden get to the end and you've measured all of this sort of butter or sugar, and there's sort of like plus this teaspoon, and all of a sudden you've added way too much because you just listed the ingredients and you went, oh, that's what the other half of that was supposed to be used for. Now it's in my thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I know the one thing for me, having nerve damage and my grip can sometimes just have muscle spasms in my hand. I always, things that have grip bottoms, like cutting boards they have that silicone bottom or those grip pieces, I always say is sort of my favorite thing that I'll look for if I'm buying things to use in the kitchen, because I a lot of times will have spasms and have to let go of things naturally with my hand, and having things that naturally don't slip and slide on their own is always a benefit to me when I'm trying to work.
Absolutely. Yeah,
what about some like go-to vegetarian or vegan snacks if people want to have things more healthy to bring on the go?
I love snacks.
Me too.
Okay, so as a vegan, I love to eat all the things. And so something I keep around in my car often, if I get hungry, I get quite hangry. And so depending on if you like have a nut allergy or not, this may or may not be okay. But like my partner, she's allergic to nuts.
Me too.
But not peanuts though, which is so random. Yeah.
Total difference then.
Yeah, completely. So anyway, just a really quick, easy one is just peanuts, raisins, and some dark chocolate chips, or just peanuts and raisins, just to have around. It's like a nice, salty, sweet, kind of like high fat, high protein, just like get in your belly. So easy to put together. Really, really nice. What else is a nice snack? Let's think. Just like celery dipped in everything. You know, if I'm making hummus at home, just like, a really fun and easy thing to do. So if you're not into cooking and you just want a nice, quick, easy vegan snack, just buying some store-bought hummus and then a head of romaine lettuce and just giving it a quick rinse, and then pulling off one piece of romaine at a time and dipping it like a spoon into the hummus and eating it. Oh. That used to be, before I cooked for myself, that was my quick and easy, fast snack that I could just take on the go. And, I wouldn't eat that on a bus or anything, but like if I needed a snack between work or whatever I was doing, and it is so like no prep, you don't have to chop anything up. But then other than that, I don't know, I have lots of examples on my YouTube channel. Yeah. people can kind of check out? Because I'm not really thinking of any other good ones right now.
No, I'm just sitting there going, that is so practical to just like peel lettuce and then dip and eat. That is just so practical.
So good. It's just, you just feel like a king, just like,
It's so fulfilling.
into my mouth.
So since you do a lot of work with, obviously with Stump Kitchen, it's all filming. So do you have different things, different types of camera or lighting that you like to use, or video editing, or things that you like to use in terms of the Stump Kitchen process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the greatest things that I've learned is that you can do YouTube and you can do content creation on a very low budget. So the first full year of Stump Kitchen, I used my smartphone, my iPhone, and just lamps in my house. I would take all of the lamps, put them in the kitchen, make them in a little horseshoe. So I was getting light from all directions because you want to kind of minimize shadow. So I literally spent $0 for the first year on Stump Kitchen. There are some downsides to that, but you can get around it in editing. For editing, I use a program called Final Cut Pro. And the libraries in my city, most of them have the program for free on their computers. So you can go in for a couple hours at a time, use a computer with your jump drive or whatever, do your editing, and then leave again. And so that was really good. And I learned how to use it online with tutorials through the library as well. And then once I got a bit more, I just was like really into the YouTube thing, I saved up and I bought the program. It's about $400. Very easy to use with a bit of practice, and I'm still learning it as I go, but I do highly recommend it. But iMovie is also really good. You can do so much with just your phone. You can even edit on your phone. It's unbelievable. But I think for lighting, using what you have, but multi-directional is really important just to kind of minimize shadows, and knowing that you don't have to spend money on special lights. I mean, now, I have a ring light, and I have a Lumix GH5, which is like a really awesome camera that I do only use about 70% of the time because I love the old school point and shoot, DIY style. So there's a lot of ways that you can do it, but I don't want people to think that like money is a limiting factor for content creation. It's definitely not, especially if you're having fun doing it and it jams with your, aligns with your vibe and what you're trying to portray. Just go for it.
Yeah, no, and I like that you said you can do it as sort of at all spectrums of the budget and even at all stages of your knowledge of editing or doing everything as well. You can slowly build up your knowledge is very helpful because a lot of people would be intimidated by sort of the editing process.
Well, and I encourage folks, if you're interested in getting into this, check out the first few Stump Kitchen episodes and then check out some of the latest ones and just see how much of a difference can happen over 3 years. And know that you can grow and change and you don't need to be perfect right away. Like some of my earlier ones, I'm like, I think they're funny and lovely, but like the volume was weird. My editing was like a little, and so just go for it.
I just like your intermission, like internal dialogue when you like cut between different takes and you're like, you pause the camera. It's very, very fun. The way you edit your videos is very entertaining.
Thank you so much.
What about sort of as a chef, what are some sort of fellow cooks, whether in the YouTube community that like to do cooking videos or even just on television, chefs that you like to watch that you would recommend to other people?
I'll think a lot of my cooking, maybe like inspiration and the creativity part of it came from watching Iron Chef. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's so lovely on the Food Network. You get a secret ingredient and the chefs all have to make these incredible dishes with this one ingredient. It's so cool. So that was a great show that I watched early on. In terms of I watch a lot of vegan stuff. So the Avant-Garde vegan is really, really good. Rachel Amma is really lovely. There's Hot for Food, so beautiful to watch. But I think there's a lot more that I'm definitely missing because I watch such a variety for the recipes just to kind of see what people are doing and to get inspired. So, and YouTube and Google are amazing for that. You can find almost anything you would want by just how to make chocolate chip cookies vegan and just kind of check it out.
I love how you said too, kind of looking up the how-tos, and how you said, well, a lot of times when I was bringing up sort of the smoothie bowl, and you said, oh, well, it would take them multiple hours to get the right sort of camera angles or shots of making it. One thing that I had a lot of our young people say is sort of cathartic downtime videos they might watch is BuzzFeed's Tasty section on YouTube. And you watch the behind the scenes of, you can watch them like continuously screwing up sections of the recipe over and over again, or it gets perfect and then they slowly move their hand away and it just falls. They're like, oh, I have to do it again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know, that's so true.
I love that. And then also sort of going back to the Food Network, I really like watching anything that is kids baking, so kid baking championships that are on the Food Network, because some of them are way more talented than I would ever be in a kitchen, and also some of them, because they're kids, the way their techniques are, how they do things, they seem more tangible for new people in the kitchen of how kids are interacting with baking.
Absolutely.
I would imagine, because you do a lot of videos with younger kids and you do cooking classes with kids too, that's like right in your neck of the woods of having them in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to spill a bit and that's okay. Like, just kind of knowing what to expect. It's lovely.
What about, do you use different like apps or tools in terms of like scheduling out your YouTube videos or blog posts that you're writing, or things for your cooking classes when you're preparing for different cooking?
Right. So for Instagram, I use Planoly, just to kind of like, I don't do a lot of pre-planning, but if I do, I like Planoly because I can put in my photos and see how it's going to look. Mm-hmm. And then I also have an option for, depending on the mood that I'm in, I can do a post picking any of the pre-uploaded pictures to create a post based on my mood, or of course just doing it on the fly. I use Squarespace for my website, which I've been pretty happy with so far. Like, I'm able to like sell merch on it, and the blog function I really like. And then in terms of my own planning, I really am just old school. Like, I do a lot of lists. I have lists, and I have in my Google Cal, I put in lists and things and timelines on my Google Calendar, so I can look at the entire month and just see, okay, I've got 2 weeks for this, I've got 1 week for this, I have 4 months for this, whatever, so I can see it all big picture. I find if I get too many apps and too many organization things on this, then I forget and I just start playing games and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But I like to see it and I like to write it down. But Planoly has been really, really nice for that.
I know, fellow list people, you make lists for your lists to schedule them out. I need to look at this list this time and this list for that list. Multiple Post-it notes. I always say I should have stock in Post-its because they're just everywhere.
It's so true. I have always a running list on my fridge of groceries that I need and recipes that I want to try and recipes that I know I can do without thinking. Because there's, sometimes I'm in a point where I'm like, I don't know what to make. Like, I don't have any, like, I'm not feeling creative, or I'm having kind of a blank and I'm just like, so I have my go-tos there. And I'm like, okay, I can make, chicken and waffles. This is good. I have these things. But always a running grocery list of things that I need. As soon as I run out, I put it on the fridge. That's been a really good tool to keep me organized in the kitchen. Because like I said before, the worst thing is you get to a recipe and you're like, I have everything but this one thing. No.
Oh my God, no, I love that. What about I was kind of looking at our list too. I know looking at your Instagram as well, you do post a lot of your wellness is very important for you. You've posted different posts of you working out and exercising and staying fit and mentally fit as well. So are there different sort of go-to exercises that you like to do, or different pieces as like workout equipment that you like to use?
So for me, I can't do anything for too long that's the same. So I like really variety in my workouts. Mm-hmm. And I don't work out that often. It's something that I do love to do. But I'm not one of those people that's like, okay, every day we're getting up at 6 and we're going for a run. Like, I don't think I could live like that, and I respect those who can. But I love strength training. I love like yoga, like that really kind of get into the strength training and the stretching. Mm-hmm. And I also, one of my adaptive tools I use in the gym is called the Harbinger Hook. And it was sent to me by Mary Beth, who is an adaptive power lifter.
Oh, cool.
Also missing a hand. So cool. She's on Instagram. And yeah, we were just chatting and she just sent it. And I was like, holy cow. So it kind of hooks on. It has 2 little prong hooks. So I can pick things up. I can like use it to kind of do overhead resistance, like shoulder pushes. And it's on my Instagram as well. But that's been a cool game changer in my gym life. It's been really neat to experience.
That is cool.
And Instagram made that connection. I love social media for that.
There we go. Speaking of social media, then I am happy to say we just reached the end of the episode with you. So I wanted to have all of our listeners and viewers be able to find, we keep mentioning your amazing Instagram that I keep raving about that is so kick-ass, and your YouTube channel. So I wanted to know, where can everybody find you on social media and find your channel and your website?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, I am at Stump_kitchen, and YouTube is youtube.com/StumpKitchen. Website, stumpkitchen.com. It's pretty easy to find.
Just Google Stump Kitchen.
Yeah. Twitter, Stump_kitchen. And I love engaging with people on all those platforms. So I look forward to any questions or comments you might have. So, yeah.
Absolutely, guys. We're going to link all of Stump Kitchen and Alexis below, so you guys can make sure you can find her. You can find InvisiYouth Charity all over Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at InvisiYouth, and this video podcast on our YouTube channel, or on all of anywhere you can find a podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you can. Make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, 5 stars, all of that. We greatly appreciate it. And what I greatly appreciate is being able to finally collaborate with you, Alexis. I was so excited to have this episode and getting to work with you. So I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to be a part of the chat sessions.
Me too. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for asking. And thanks everyone for watching.
Of course. And you guys will hear us again